title track is the song marking our return, therefore it's quite a pissed off song, both lyrically and musically. It's a very varied song since it features a lot of riffs and different sections, starting in a typical Forgotten Tombs fashion, then going through some really heavy, sludgy riffs, and coming back to a classic Forgotten Tombs finale with a lot of our signature lead guitar lines. I think it's definitely one of my favorite tracks on the record. This is a really doomy song. It sounds a bit like Cold Summer, a song from an older album we did called And Don't Deliver Us From Evil in 2012. But it's groovier and heavier, with big riffs and our signature dissonant arpeggios. There's a faster, more black metal section in the middle of the song with the only blast beat of the whole album, while the ending part of the song features one of my favorite riffs. It's actually a riff that I originally wrote in 2004 and I finally managed to include it on this album. This is a very interesting track because it's built on a drum pattern that we never used before. Really groovy stuff, sounds really urgent, and I like the way the vocals fit in there. There are some really dramatic lead guitars in the middle section, then the song ends up in a long closing section which is inspired by the dark wave or dark rock of the 80s, with some cool bass guitar line and some atmospheric lead guitar layers and delays that remind me of Sisters of Mercy, The Cult or Joy Division, stuff like that, you know. With this one will probably take some people by surprise because it starts off as a very punk-inspired song. The story behind it is that I had this melodic and melancholic riff that reminded me of some of our early stuff, but I decided to play it at a faster pace over a punk cross tempo. So the effect is that it feels like listening to a punk version of our first album, Songs to Live, or something like that. I think it's pretty interesting. The song is the longest one of the album and it features a multitude of guitar overdubs and lead guitars. There are really a lot of arrangements, so it might take a few spins before you notice all the details. There's a typical Forgotten Tomb acoustic break in the middle, and the final riff is this mid-tempo hypnotic thing with a dissonant arpeggio on top which keeps on changing until the song fades out. It's one of the slowest and heaviest songs on the album. I wrote it together with our bass player Alex. I basically wrote the whole first part and he wrote the second one from the acoustic break. Then we arranged some details together. It's a weird song because the main lead guitar lines are inspired by Middle East Oriental music, so the overall feeling is kind of majestic and exotic. It sounds like, you know, wandering through a desert or something like that. The acoustic part is kind of bluesy. I added some last minute slide guitar in the studio, though I didn't have a bottleneck, so I actually had to break a wine bottle and use its neck to play the part, which worked out pretty well actually. The song then goes into some really fucking heavy riffs. It's a bit different from everything we have done in the past, even if the acoustic part with the slide and the overall heaviness might remind you of one of our older songs titled No Rehab from the Negative Megalomania album. This is an experiment we had in mind since a few years, but we never had a chance to record it before. It's actually a reworked version of an electronic song by German composer Chris Hulsbeck, originally titled Enemy Mine. I decided to change the title because the original one didn't fit too well into the track list, in my opinion, though it's actually noted in the booklet of the album. It's an instrumental track and it's very atmospheric. It's a very dark and brooding song with some marvelous melodies, and I think it perfectly fits the album's mood as well as being a nice way to close the record. I hope you enjoyed this track by track and go get the fucking album when it comes out. Thanks a lot.